And it's the final day of the National Dialogue on Coalitions, and during the gathering, the ANC had expressed that the party with the biggest support base in terms of votes should lead the coalition. However, the Freedom Front Plus and Good Party disagree with this sentiment. And our senior reporter, Siphamandla Goge, is tracking this story and joins me now. Good afternoon to you, Siphamandla, and thank you so much for joining us. It really wasn't going to work because this is essentially a partnership of unequals, as it were, with the ANC dominating. Good afternoon.
Indeed, that will always be the case. We are talking about a number of political parties that differ fundamentally when it comes to the political ideology, their constituencies, their priorities, but they share one common interest. They all want political power, and they are alive to the fact and the reality or possibility that the electorate may force them to work together moving forward. Yes, many people are preoccupied with what will happen after 2024, but this discussion also centers around the current crisis at a local government sphere. A number of hung councils in this country have seen instability, and you go to Gauteng, a number of big metros there are still grappling, and being plagued by that instability, which has affected the provision of basic services. It's not only Good Party that is not happy with some of the proposals. The Freedom Front Plus, UDM, ATM, all of them are really not happy with what the governing African National Congress is proposing. The ANC is saying in the event that there is no outright and majority winner, those with the highest number of votes must lead in forming the coalition government. There is also another thorny issue about the proposed threshold to say those who can come to the table and join the discussion and the arrangement must have a certain threshold. And smaller parties feel that will exclude them, and they accuse the ANC and the DA of this grand coalition that they allege. So right now we are joined by Professor Mcebisi, who is, by the way, one of the people who drafted that discussion document and paper on what is happening here. Prof, thank you very much for your time. Let's talk about the importance of this dialogue first before we venture into thorny issues. How crucial is this dialogue, and what is it meant to address?
It is very important in that we have instability in these coalitions. We know government is not working properly. So there is a serious problem that needs addressing. So everybody who's here realizes that you need solutions to this problem, and they are obviously looking at it differently. The idea is not to stop coalitions, not to kind of kill them, but create conditions that enable their functionality, right? Because we know that they don't work well. So you can't have a problem and not do anything about it. That would be extremely foolish. So at some point they knew that something had to give. Some kind of a solution must be devised, and that's why we are here.
In your view, what will be that solution? Because we are dealing with different political parties that have got different interests, but they are also united by one common interest, political power. Are there possible solutions that can be put on the table that might work?
Parties use power differently. Others want to get power simply for titles and patronage. And so some of them hop from one coalition to another. They are serial bad hoppers. If they don't get what they want in this arrangement, then they go and whisper into SPA's ears, hey, we can set up something better, because they are always looking for a better deal for themselves. And some of them are very small parties. They don't know if they'll come back, for instance, the next time around. So they are keen to make as much as they can now to build a nest in case they don't come back. But bigger parties tend to behave a lot more differently, right? They know that they have a big support and they can grow. So their main idea is how to impress voters. Do these things in a good way so that you are able to get even more support. So there's more pressure on big parties to behave well than there is on small parties. We are not talking theoretically here. We are talking about 5 years experience. Yes, parties, small parties hopping from one bed to another. So we know what the problem is. ATM is part of the problem. These other small parties are part of the problem. We're not devising the perfect solution. Not everybody will be happy, but how do you create optimal conditions for the success of government? Because government is just as important as voting. Government must work. People vote for government, so government must work. So we have to make sure that we enforce and consolidate that they can work.
Proposals have been put on the table. The ANC and the DA appear to share a similar view, which says the the party that has got the highest number of votes must lead in the formation of any coalition government. There is also another thorny issue about the threshold. That term is coming up frequently. Smaller parties feel that bigger parties are trying to close them off the space. What is your view in that regard?
Well, you are always going to close off the space to keep out the bad actors. They are bad actors. I mean, this is not theoretical, it's reality. So make sure that you have fewer partners. Big partners who have something at stake, who, when they misbehave, they'll have costs, right? So the threshold will be, for instance, to be part of a coalition, you must at least have gotten about 3 seats or 4 seats. So you can't be looked at if you only have 1 seat and ube mayor on top of that with only 1 seat. And we know that this mayor, this 1-seat mayor, is not in charge. So this is a facade, right? So we need people with serious accountability, with serious voters who know that if they do something wrong, their voters will call on them. So big parties, this is what our experience tells us. Big parties have better chance of doing things better. That's the only reason, really. There's nothing against small parties.
What is the role of the electorate in this whole thing? You have these political parties coming together. At the end of the day, it boils down to the electorate, the voters, and the way they vote or decide not to vote, because it's the electorate that will force political parties to negotiate and talk about working together. What is the role of the electorate?
Voters should make better choices, should choose for parties with proven record, parties that have done well in the past. Of course, we need diversity of parties. You know, we need a wide choice. They can go beyond the normal choices. But at the end of the day, they must choose parties that they know have done well. Because ultimately, we have these governments because the voters have made their choices. And also they must be in charge. They must be involved. You know, with all these, for instance, agreements, do they know what they entail? They must be publicized. Voters should know what has been agreed upon, so that when things don't happen, they call upon their councillors. So we must open up the process. You must have independent facilitators, so to facilitate these agreements and monitor them, because you want to include public pressure, public censure. There must be cost to parties not doing things well. So if they err somewhere, it must be known elsewhere. It must be a public issue, community radio and all that, so that you bring that public pressure to bear.
Unstable coalition governments at a local level have proven to be a disaster for the provision of basic services. There are fears that if it spirals to the provincial and national government, it will be catastrophic. Do you share the similar sentiment and view?
Of course. I mean, that's partly the reason why we are here. There must be a way of doing things. This mess cannot continue. You know, and this is the right thing. Something has gone wrong, fix it, and you are fixing it for the future as well, because you know that it might just come up, and if it does happen, then you have disastrous consequences. So we are here because we know this thing hasn't worked, and we are trying to come up with a solution. That's the best way. I mean, best countries thinking people do that.
It's about thinking, you know, about the way forward, but this is just a start. No matter what comes out of this 2-day dialogue, we'll need more work moving forward to fine-tune and get to agree on certain things. Do you think the attitude and the temperature is positive for the ongoing dialogue to continue, because this will not be resolved today?
It will not be resolved today, and of course, you know, there are parties whose very existence is about deviating from normal behavior. They benefit from normal behavior. Deviating rather. So we know that, spoilers, they will not all of them agree. But what is important when ASPA, it's agreeing on the right things. You can have many parties agreeing on the wrong things. That's not good thinking. So if they have good principles in place, few agree, and they are able to pass that through. That's what counts.
Should coalition governments be legislated, do you need something that will ensure that they are legislated so that you are able to deal with them, manage them properly moving forward?
legislate how they work, how they are constituted, and who does the process, the motions. How many times should you have a motion? And that motion should make sense. No, this chap is not working, therefore let's just kick him out. No. You must demonstrate that this mayor has done so many things wrong, therefore he must be removed. At the moment, you can just say anything and they vote, they kick you out. So regulation is meant to knock common sense. Really, it's really about knocking common sense because the consequences are disastrous. We've seen them. Municipalities don't spend their budget, don't approve programs because they are constantly trying to get each other out. For 3 to 4 weeks. You will not have a meeting. The budget is not approved. There is no monitoring. Nothing happens and people suffer. So this process is important to consolidate how government works. It's for the betterment of the people and for parties so that they live up to their own promises.
Prof, thank you very much for time. Let's release you. That is Professor Mcebisi Ndlechane, one of the co-authors of the discussion document taking place here at the National Dialogue on Coalition Governments.
All right, Siphamandla, just a very quick one. It just seems like the ANC at this point is speaking to itself because, as you were saying, other parties are disenchanted. They're not trusting the process, particularly when it comes to the dominance of the ANC. What this also means, which is hugely concerning, the lack of service delivery, the deterioration of infrastructure and everything else that could potentially go wrong under these coalitions. But there's hope. Did you get a sense that there is at least some form of a strategy, a vision, a plan going forward that will instill confidence in the South African citizenry?
I got a sense that at least the positive out of this is that people are willing to listen to each other. They fundamentally disagree on certain things, issues and factors, party policy, positions, but at least they are willing to engage and to be engaged. With the exception, of course, of the ATM, which walked out yesterday. They called this a farce, and also Good Party is really not pleased with the discussion and the proposal around the introduction of a threshold. They say they are willing to go all the way to the Constitutional Court because introducing thresholds will limit and close off smaller parties, and they say that is unconstitutional. So you get a sense that it will be a long legal battle if they do not agree on certain things, but better have that now than have it after the elections where they will have where there will be a stalemate in terms of forming government if and when there is a need to do so. Also, Freedom Front Plus not agreeing with the proposal that the majority party or the party that gets the highest votes must lead in forming the coalition government. Their argument and thinking is that if there is no one with 50+1, which is a constitutional requirement, then there is no majority or outright winner. Let all of us negotiate. If, for instance, one Cindy Mabe has 30 votes and one Siphamandla Goge has 4 votes, they must be treated as equals because all of them, they did not get the majority that is required to form government. That is the proposal by the Freedom Front Plus. UDM still aggrieved, saying this looks like a grand coalition between the DA and the ANC. So you get a sense that, yes, there are people who are unhappy here, but they are willing to listen to each other and to be engaged as well. But remember, it will take a lot for them to agree, and you may end up with some political parties walking away from this, not being part of this. Simply put, this is far from over. You will have negotiation, you will have lobbying and horse trading up until the last minute after the elections, should there be no clear outright winner.